have slide envy here. So this is what happens when you produce a presentation that's due at 5 o'clock on a Friday at 4 o'clock on a Friday, before our barbecues. So PointClickCare, basically most people don't know us. We were having some conversations out in the lobby. We're a SaaS provider that provides solutions to what's known as the LTPAC community, or long-term post-acute care community. So nursing homes, as we'll know, nursing homes, skilled nursing facilities, long-term care facilities. But our software basically helps them manage the facilities and the residents or patients, depending on which industry you're talking about. They call them different things. And we've been in the industry for a long time. The company was founded in 2001, and we've been a SaaS provider for most of that time. So before the industry actually even got into SaaS, we were actually providing solutions for this segment of the market. And so we've been on a journey to the cloud like everyone. Like every single sentence you hear, cloud, 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 cloud. I used to call it cloudification, because every time you turn around, there was a new thing for cloud. And the reason that we are trying to move from supporting our own data centers to get into the cloud is essentially, like most of the people, increase our speed and our agility. And what does that mean? I mean, my team essentially supports the infrastructure. So we support all the production systems. So if something goes bump in the night, it's our team that's getting up. We spend at least one weekend a month doing maintenance. I don't like being up, 8 hours at 2 a.m. in the morning on a weekend. That's not fun. So by moving to the cloud, we're hoping to get away from managing our own systems, to be able to spend more time delivering software for our clients. Another key reason is scalability, similar sort of thing. You've heard people here talk about, startups being able to start small and scale quickly. In our case, it's more about the scalability of delivering new solutions. So we have new technologies, new products that we want to go to our client base with. If we're managing our own infrastructure, it typically takes months to procure servers. I think everyone understands that. And the other side of it is even testing. If we're looking at delivering a new software release to the environment, where do you spin that infrastructure up? When we are managing our own infrastructure, you're actually constrained, highly constrained about what you can do and when you can do it. So you spend more time trying to plan things in your environment than you do actually trying to deliver solutions. And then the other, I guess, key thing is adding value to our customers. Our customers are in a very cost-constrained market. I think you can see on the news all the time, the acute care hospitals get a lot of press. Skilled nursing facilities, long-term care homes, they don't get any press. They don't get a lot of money. And so what we try to do is to add value to that. So our software basically helps them manage their environment, keep their costs down. And so what we're trying to do is to be able to develop new solutions, new ways to do business, help them on billing, help them manage the residents. And that's the other thing too. It's not just about the management portion of the software. Our software is also used to collect vitals and statistics. It helps dispense drugs. It helps schedule, social activities. So the software is used in the daily application of the entire life cycle of the environment. So as we start adding more value, more features, it gives us the ability to essentially help people, not just essentially from a business perspective, but in their life. And everyone asks, why AWS? And the first thing I put there is maturity. We experimented with a few other cloud providers. Wasn't pretty. I don't know if anyone's had other experience with some of the other providers, but the services weren't mature. You try things. You've heard tonight a lot of people speaking about things work. We can do all these neat new things. Some of the other providers, they're not to that same level. So the reason that we essentially decided to or continue to move to AWS is the fact that their products do deliver. They're constantly bringing out new services, and that's the last thing too, magnitude of services. Every time you turn around, there's a new service being delivered. Matt spoke about it earlier this evening, and then especially in our industry, compliance and security is a key thing. And that's one of the things that's really slowed us down in moving into the cloud is we have to have something known as HIPAA compliance. And the services essentially in the cloud are eligible for it. And the speed that AWS is essentially announcing new services is just fantastic. Our journey so far, typical to most organizations, we're not a startup. I won't call us a legacy, but typically a legacy. We've moved essentially our development test environments into AWS. That gave us the ability to iterate quicker. We worked with another presenter here, Try Nimbus, Jared will be speaking shortly, to move our analytics platform into the cloud. That was a tremendous success. The one that we're working on right now is disaster recovery. Every sort of major vendor or product or company really has to deal with disaster recovery. We typically have had to maintain facilities, physical facilities, run tests every year. With AWS, what we're trying to do now is to automate that spin up. So what would take 24 to 72 hours to spin up in the case of disaster, we're hoping to get up within the target of 4 hours. Probably the first time we tried, it's not going to work like everyone, but we're going to get there. And then what's next? The test. So we've been working with Try Nimbus and AWS to get us to this disaster recovery point of view, and we're actually scheduling the test for the first week of November. So Remembrance Day for us this year is actually going to be our DR test. And then the key thing that we came about this is what's next is we're calling a full stack CI/CD pipeline. Like everyone here works in software development. We keep talking about continuous integration, continuous development, the speed of build. My team is supporting infrastructure. No one ever talks about operating systems, tools, app servers, all the code and scripts that support that. And so every time we start talking about a pipeline, it's about delivering code to a machine. Well, who delivers the machine? Who delivers the tool, the application performance monitoring tools, all the other hardening scripts? So that's essentially what's next. And I'm getting the time slot here. Challenges, are we the first to do this? We went into some of our discovery process and it was like, hasn't anyone done this before? The cloud has been around forever, hasn't it? Everyone's moved there. Are we the first? So we came across a lot of issues. And coming back, the clouds are not the same. And I speak to this on more, the industry was banting about private cloud, public cloud. And there's a lot of vendors that are saying they can take your private cloud and they can move it into the public cloud. Well, they're not the same. The tools, the technologies, the way you move things, the way you do things is different. Another thing that was key is operating systems are not equal. I've heard a lot of people talk about Linux and deploying, we can stand machines up very quickly. Our core application, Windows-based. Our core database, Microsoft SQL. I've never seen a company tune and use Microsoft SQL in an enterprise setting like our company does. So coming back to other cloud providers are not mature. If you know our stack is Microsoft, you might know the other cloud I'm talking about, but anyways. So we found out in automation, there's a lot of industry best practices, a lot of information on getting Linux into the environment, but when we try to look at automating and moving our large database servers into AWS and automating them, there's not a lot of industry knowledge out there. So we actually came across a few challenges, and luckily because we partnered with Try Nimbus and AWS, we're able to reach back into their development and engineering people to help us overcome some of those things. And coming back to what do we learn? Maybe not the first, we're definitely early in our stack. So our systems that we're looking to move or migrate are quite large. Our database servers, we were running into some of the limitations on AWS. We're looking at standing up database servers with 45 terabytes attached to them. So when you're trying to invoke a database server that large, it's not easy. It takes quite a bit of time. And so we're definitely early, but it also means you got to look for good partners and people to work with. And we've heard a lot of talk about people. No one knows everything. All the tools and services that we're using are essentially evolving. So you've got to expect the challenges and you've got to work with good people to help move those forward. And the other thing, I think it's been said a lot, but I have to reiterate it. You have to embrace and adopt the cloud, don't move to it. Like our story is, I don't want to call it a legacy, but an enterprise moving into the cloud. But what we're looking at with that DR and essentially that full stack CI/CD is you can't just take a thing and lift it and move it in the cloud. You do that, it costs you more, it doesn't work, you're retrofitting it. So essentially part of our journey was learning that in order for us to effectively use the cloud, use AWS, we're essentially having to take the technology we use, the processes that we use, and essentially rethink them. Take a look at the services that are being offered, essentially do them as they should be in the cloud. And we've had a lot of challenges with vendors. So I'm not sure how much of the audience here is on the sort of the enterprise space, but every vendor claims they can bring their technology in the cloud. It just doesn't work. And so that was also one of our learning challenges. And don't forget the small things, meaning people again. People, services, technology, they're the most important things. Like if we don't motivate our teams, and I've got some of them from the Trinimus team at the back of the room, they'll attest to the fact that some of the challenges we've had, you think you're gonna slog through it. All of a sudden, there's another challenge, there's another challenge. There'll always be another challenge. But it's the people that essentially help you move through these things. And I guess the other thing from the enterprise space, consensus. So we have a number of different teams, DevOps, infrastructure, development, security. When you're in a startup and your team is 6 people, consensus is easy to build. But when you're in a larger organization, it's much more difficult. But if you don't do that, you will not get buy-in. And you won't learn a lot of things too, because if you exclude certain people from the conversation, then you're losing their perspective. And that was very key to us in our DevOps teams, our infrastructure teams, like I said, security. They had specific things that they needed to bring to the table for us to help basically build and develop a better process. And again, the last thing, support and motivate the team. It comes back to learning everything is essentially a brand new experience. And if we don't, oh yes, time's up. Sorry, yes, time's up. If you don't motivate your team, they will not overcome the difficulties. And we've had great teams understanding that the challenges will be there, and every single time you try to do something new, there's gonna be another challenge. But you've got to motivate those teams, and you've got to give them the space to try new things. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, you want me back up? Sure.
Questions?
Oh, question. Sorry, questions. I thought they're just trying to kick me off the stage. Sure. No questions? Oh, there we go.
Hey everyone, my name is Pratik. I'm a computer science engineer coming from India. I'm a student here at Lambton College. I have experience in using the AWS platform myself. And I mean, this question is for everyone here because today we are talking about scalability, but no one is talking really about the security end of this platform, this AWS mechanism, serverless architecture we're using here. So how, since you're having a large database, and I mean, how you're taking care of security on using AWS? That's my question, yeah.
I've been asked that a lot, actually 3 or 4 times tonight. So it depends. I guess if you look at security in general, taking AWS out of the question, you have to have practices, compliance requirements, control frameworks. That doesn't change whether you're in the cloud or not in the cloud. So whatever basically security practices that you have in the organization, when you adopt a new technology, whether it's cloud today or tomorrow some other technology, you have to take the controls that you're trying to enforce and then learn how either they need to be enacted or essentially change your process, because there could be a different way to do it. For example, HIPAA compliance. If you look at AWS's website on HIPAA, they're not compliant. They have something known as HIPAA eligible, and there's something known as a shared security methodology or model, which means they will provide services with certain levels of functionality. It's our responsibility to implement them properly and then put processes and controls around those to make sure that they're effective. A good example, identification and access, or IAM, identity and access management. So AWS has IAM for its services. That doesn't translate into the systems that we might put underneath it, but then we need to put in some access methodology. It could be AD, if that's, again, Microsoft Shop. That could be AD, but I can take that and integrate that into IAM. I need to have processes and controls around our AD, for example, that says who can create accounts, what password policies, do I need multi-factor access? Those did not come from AWS. They came from our security, essentially, controls. So that doesn't change. So you need to know what the intent of the control that you're trying to implement, and then look at how the technology enacts it. And we've had some challenges even on, security is a good example on firewalling, for example. I don't know how many people here have looked at trying to move their existing network into AWS. I'm looking at RBC because you probably understand where I'm coming from here. All the major vendors out there go, we can bring you to the cloud. Their technologies don't scale. They look at taking things that were developed on-prem. Typically on-prem, you funneled every single piece of traffic through one point in the network. Your security guys loved you because they could put IDS and IPS in there, and they're like, we're good to go. Where's the single point to the cloud? There isn't one. And if you really want to scale, you want to be able to spin things up, which means you're putting many points of presence. So when we started looking at the controls we need to do, which is really, I want to put a firewall in there. I want to put, inspection in there. I want to do this. I want to do this. We changed tools. We looked at different products to be able to do what we wanted to do. We couldn't take what we had on premise and essentially move it because it just didn't work. It was either too expensive. Yeah, time's up. Sorry. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Because I know.
Thank you.
Kick me off. What's that?
You're gonna be
here after?
Yes,
Hello,
I will.
hello. I got one more for you. I know you're trying to get off.
Okay.
The
yes.
heat is, it must be hot up there.
No, they're just trying to kick me off. I keep getting a sign going, time's up, time's up.
You're dealing well with the heat, man. You're dealing well. So I heard you,
Yeah.
I'm Val. I have a company, Liquid String.
Yes.
Just a quick plug. How do you support and motivate your team? I only heard you say give them time. Now, I'll let you do the how.
Quite a few ways. Encouragement is one thing, one really good thing. So we have demos every week like most other teams that are working in an agile methodology. And when the team does something well, you've got to celebrate it. So we give them the time to show what they need to do. And management has to understand what I'll call the technical process. I'll give a story back. Sorry, you got to give me a couple minutes here. When a previous company I was going to, or worked at, we were going through essentially the transition to Agile, and you bring business people into the environment. We brought our first product owners in. They had never sat in IT, right? But if you know developers, they're hardworking. They get down there and they concentrate, but then they need time to relax, right? You got to get out of that process. You cannot work 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. So we first started bringing our business people in there, and they're like, the developer sits down there, works hard for 3 hours, then goes and plays pool. Well, how isn't he doing his job? Because they didn't understand the creative process that comes into technology. And after they were in that environment for about a month, they started to understand the creative process. And so what I'm trying to get there is if you don't have management that understands, you can't force that team. If they come up against an obstacle, you've got to give them the time to step back from that obstacle, because if you keep pushing them, they're not going to go over the wall there and hit the wall. And then the other thing that we started trying to do is we're an operations team, which typically means we're up 7/24, you're on support, and our people are hard workers. We actually had to start putting more time in our calendar, if you want to call it, to actually take time. And one of the things that we've done, which is kind of funny, is for some reason sorry the business people in the room here, they like to book their sprint demos on Fridays, right? So for some reason, our calendars in the summer stopped having meetings on them because the business people were having the demos and they were getting the fuck out of hell, right? So what we started doing was actually barbecuing in the parking lot and having beer on Friday afternoons. And it became a social atmosphere to give the team time to talk to each other and get out of the office. If we hadn't started making that time, people would be working from home because we have a very flexible work atmosphere, and people actually now start showing up on Fridays to socialize and interact in that. And that helped build some of essentially the team spirit. So I guess the two ways I'm sort of saying is management has to understand the technical creative process, which means there's going to be high times of intensity with times where there's going to be obstacles where you got to give the team some breathing space because they're going to need to sort of relax, take another look at it, and then hit it again. And if you give them that ability, they will overcome any and every wall. If you keep pushing them, they're not going to do that. So I guess from the management style, it's leading versus pushing. If you lead them, the team will come with you, and they will follow you as far as you want to go. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, now you should go completely.